gentlemen, welcome to the Activity Call Live. Now, let's hear it for our special guest host, Marcus Richardson.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you. Thank you, Alliance family, for tuning in. I'm excited. It's May 9th, 2025, and I'm just excited about what is happening. I am so grateful whenever we get to host the calls or do any type of training. I want to first thank God, who has been so amazing and so incredible in my life. I'm also thankful and grateful to my beautiful bride, Carla, for all her support and love and holding down the fort and encouraging me and being my number one fan. And I'm also thankful to Andy and Jane for what they have built and how they have allowed me to come alongside of them and them come alongside of me and for us to do life together. I watched those videos at the beginning of the call and I'm just like, man, I've been on all those trips and I'm looking forward to Thailand. I'm looking forward to Chiang Mai and Phuket. And I'm just excited about what's happening. So let's get into it this morning as we get going. So the call on the topic today was perseverance and how you keep going when you're down or when life hits you in the mouth, because in business, not just in business, but in life, things will hit you. They'll punch you in the mouth. But it reminds me of that Rocky Balboa saying, I'm sorry, because I'm kind of a movie geek when it comes to that kind of stuff. But Rocky was telling him, he said, it's not about how hard you get hit, right? But it's about getting hit hard and then will you get back up? So when life hits you, when your business hits you, when things don't go the way you want, will you get back up? And one of my sayings and one of my mantras that I love, if you've ever read the book, it's called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. He has a saying in there on like the first few pages that I have adopted to my life. And I think it is a testament to perseverance. And here's what it says. It says, failure will never overtake me if my drive for success is strong enough. Let me say that one more time. Failure will never overtake me if my drive for success is strong enough. So you can say that and think that, but you got to get that in your heart. That's where perseverance comes from. And in understanding that you've been called to persevere in life, you've been called to persevere in this fight, you've been called to persevere in your business, and quitting is not an option. Another one of my mantras that I like to say to myself, I got it on a 3x5 index card. And here's what I say, quitters never win and winners never quit. And I'm a winner. Say that one more time. Quitters never win and winners never quit. And I'm a winner. What are you? Are you a winner? Do you see yourself as someone who perseveres and keeps going no matter how bad it gets or what the situation looks like? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to try to do it through three pillars. First one's going to be faith. And we're going to talk about faith, what that is, what that looks like, how it applies to us in life and in business. We're also going to talk about family, right? I call it the 3 F's. And then the last one we'll talk about is freedom. And then we'll wrap this morning as we're going through this process. But one thing I did want to drop in your spirit before we get started, and this is why I'm so grateful and appreciative that I've been entrusted to do the call on Friday. Anytime I get up to speak, I don't take it lightly. I always try to be well prepared. And here's what, because I know whenever you have an audience, right, they're looking at you for leadership and for direction. And I pray today that we're able to provide that for you, because here's what leadership is. I was reading this in another book, or listening to it, should I say. It was an audio book, Great Leaders Grow. And here's what it said. It said, anytime you influence the thinking, beliefs, or development of another person, you are engaged in leadership. So when we are asked to do this call and host a call, or we're asked to speak at an event, or we're asked to speak at a hotspot, or we're doing a training with our team and they're looking at us, when you hire someone, you lose the ability to be average because they're looking at you, right? When you start having kids and you start developing a family, or you get married, or you have a significant other that you love, they're looking at you for direction. They're looking at us for leadership. And here's what that looks like. Again, I'm going to read it. It says, anytime you influence the thinking, beliefs, or development of another person, you're engaged in leadership. So like I said, I count this a privilege because I know that Andy and Jane has entrusted us to be able to influence your thinking, your beliefs, and your development on these calls. And so let's get into the meat of it. But I wanted to just drop that in your spirit because I know this is a heavy task. I'm honored to be able to do it, but I'm so thankful for what we are building and what has been built. So real quick, as we go into it, let's talk about perseverance, because I think a foundation for what we're going to be talking about is important as we get into it. So let's define what perseverance is. So that way, as we know, that throughout the call, we're saying the same things, and it's not like wondering ambiguously of what that might be or what perseverance is. So here's what the New Oxford says. Okay, I'm going to give you that definition. It says perseverance, persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. I'm going to read that and hit you with that one more time. It says persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. So let's talk about that real quick. So persistence to me is constant and diligent effort. You're giving constant and diligent effort. Now, the part that I think really stood out to me when I was looking at that definition, it says despite difficulty or delay. Who told you this was going to be easy? Who told you building a business? Who told you helping families? Who told you selling insurance and building a dynasty was going to be easy? Sometimes I think social media kind of twisted for people where, you think it's the get rich quick scheme. I love when Andy told me when I first started, he said, Marcus, this is a definitely get rich scheme, but it's not get rich quick. Meaning we're going to get rich. We just got to stay diligent and persistent in the effort of what we're trying to accomplish. And so you're going to have difficulty. You're going to have life hit you in the face. You're going to be in situations where you're not sure what you should do. And you're going to have to get wisdom. You're going to have to get counsel. You're going to have to get advice. But here's what I know. When you're in that situation, anything worth having is worth fighting for. If you want to have a business, if you want to have a successful marriage, if you want to have healthy children, if you want to have productive children, you got to fight, because the enemy of our soul does not want any of that for you. He wants to continue to oppress you. He wants to continue to tell you that you're never going to be anything, that it's always going to be like this. Use the color of your skin, the background, the heritage, where you come from. Don't you know? And so those are the different voices. But whatever voice you listen to and whatever decision you make determines the outcome of your life. And so the good news is, though, if you don't like the outcomes that you're currently getting, you get a chance to make a new outcome every single day. That's why it tells us his mercies are new every morning. So again, let's hit this one more time. Persistence. So this is perseverance. Persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. So delay. You're going to have difficulty. Okay. That's just a given. You just got to make up in your mind, I'm going to get hit in the face. I'm going to get punched in the mouth, but I'm not going to quit. So let me tell you what I decided. When I met Andy and I went to that first event in Dallas, Texas, 13 and a half years ago, in my spirit, I said, this is that. I heard that in my spirit, this is that. This is what I was looking for in regards to being in an environment that will allow me and myself to grow to the full capacity of what God has put in me. And so the first thing I did is you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision that says, you know what, this is what I'm doing. And then the second decision was, this is who I'm doing it with, right? If you've ever read that book, there's a small book in Andy's bookstore when you go to the Alliance. It's called The 3 Decisions. And what it talks about is you got to decide what you're going to do, who you're going to do life with, and then why you're doing it. And so I made that decision early in this business. Now, that didn't stop me from going through hell, y'all. It doesn't stop you from going through hell. Like there are going to be things in your life and in your business that hit you. But if you've already made a decision, right, and then you have the mental resolve or the character to maintain that decision when the environment in which you made the decision leaves, that's what leadership looks like. That's what character looks like. Because you have to make up in your mind that it might be delayed. But a delay in God is not a denial. Let me say that one more time. Y'all know I get excited sometimes. A delay in God is not a denial. Sometimes that delay is just preparing you because your character needs to be forged. Because if you got some of the stuff, the way God deals with me, he says, Marcus, if I gave you some of the stuff I have planned for you right now, son, it would destroy you. And so here's what I've learned to do in the situation where I'm delayed. Okay, so let me give you some tools. When you're delayed in your success, when you're having difficulty in your success and what you define as success, stop and begin to tell God, thank you. Thank you for where you are. Thank you for where he's brought you to, and thank you for where he's brought you from. Because all of us are going to have difficulties. All of us are going to be delayed. But when the time is right, he will bring you into the fullness of his promise of what he's promised for your life, okay? Now, in achieving success, so everybody has different definitions for success, right? Your success looks different than my success. My success looks different than your success, and so forth. So, what I wanted to give you today was this is what I call a functioning definition of success, because success is different for everybody. But here's how I define success: is for me, success is knowing God's plan for your life and pursuing it diligently with everything that you have. That looks different for each person because your plan is different than my plan, right? But do you know what God has planned for your life? And then are you pursuing it diligently? And I believe this is why he's given us this business and this opportunity, is because there's no limits to what we can do here. But question is, what does success look like for you? It's different for each person. But if you let someone else define what success looks like for you, now you're living someone else's story and not your own story. What does success look like for you? For me, success looks like, God, what is your plan for my life? What is your plan for my marriage? What is your plan for my children? What is your plan for my business? And then max out. How do I go all in, all out with God and pursue that? And what does that look like? So let's talk about that. Okay. So, and here's what I ultimately want to get to. Success is me focused. What does that look like for me? But really what I think that God is saying today, and just what he wants to do in us and through us, is take us from success to significance. Success is, what about me, my goals, right? Significance is, what am I doing to help other people? What am I doing to impact other people? So the goal is, when we have calls like this and we're building a team, we're building a business, is my life helping other people? Am I adding value to others as they come into our circle? And that's the prayer, and that's the hope at the end of the day, is that because they met Marcus or because they met you, their life is better, right? Because they met you. And so that's, to me, where we ultimately want to get to success, knowing the plan that God has for your life, and then pursuing it diligently with everything that you have, going all out, maxed out 100%. Okay. That takes planning, that takes diligence, that takes wisdom, that takes getting counsel, getting understanding, but then going after it. And then once you get to that place, it's significance. Can I teach other people how to find the plan of God for their life? Can I teach other people how to build a business? Can I teach other people how to persuade people to make an informed decision when it comes to life insurance, protecting their families? That's when you start having significance. And the reason that we all are part of this and part of the alliance is because Andy and Jane's life has went from a life from success to significance. They've got so many stories of significance of people that they've impacted. That's why I love watching what Andy's been doing and how he's been doing it, is because even though he's been significant in making impacts in so many lives, he doesn't stop. He keeps going, and he keeps pouring out and pouring on the gas. And I honestly believe he's doing it to set an example of what leadership looks like. And so I'm so grateful and thankful that he sets the example, and not just Andy, but all the leaders. I'm seeing everybody and what they're doing on the chat, and how business is growing and what they're doing. And so I'm honored to see how you all are leading and how we're leading together and growing together. So let's get into the first one. Okay. So that was my intro, y'all. All right. Intro. All right. So you ready? So let's hit the first one. Now that we're talking about perseverance, getting hit in the face, in order to persevere when life gets hard, I think it requires faith. Now, let me give you a functioning, same thing, definition of faith. This is what it says in Hebrews. Here's what it says. It says, Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it's impossible to please God. For by faith, you must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So faith is when you hear something, when you hear God speaking and you take action. Okay. Faith is, like, let me give you an example. When you get in your car, you turn your car on. Now, some people know how the car works. Yours truly, I do not know how the car works. But I have faith that when I push the button or when I twist the switch, it's going to start up and do what it was required to do. Here's the key, though. It requires me to get in the car, right? It requires me to turn the switch. It requires me to get the car moving. So that's what faith is. To me, that's a working definition of faith. Faith is knowing that this is going to happen. And then what is the required action? Or for me, what is God asking me to do? Because faith without works is dead. A lot of times people say, I have faith this is going to work. but they won't call no leads. I have faith this is going to work, but they won't talk to people in their network and show them the business opportunity. I have faith this is going to work, but you follow what I'm saying? So you can say you have faith, but don't tell me you have faith. Show me you have faith. Where's your numbers at? What's it looking like on the leaderboard? And so when it comes to faith, faith is not just flapping your jaws. Okay, faith is actually taking action and then taking massive action toward the goal that you have set out for your life in regards to what God has asked you to do and what he's requiring of you. Okay. So another definition of faith, and I'm going to say this: faith is what we walk by. We walk not by sight, but we walk by faith. So what does that mean? I cannot see the end of how this thing looks out, but I walk in faith anyway, right? I don't necessarily know how it's going to look, but I have faith that God is in it with me, right? I know where I want my business to be, but it's not quite there yet. But even though it's not quite there yet, even though I've been delayed, right? Even though I've been through some difficulties, people quitting, chargebacks, roll-ups, all that stuff, it's part of the process. But in all of it, I tell God, thank you, because I know that in this, he has a greater plan, because he's the author and finisher of my faith. And so because he's the author and finisher of my faith, when life hits me or when things get difficult, I continue to keep my eyes fixed on him. Easier said than done when you're going through trials, when your life is hitting you. But I think the biggest thing that we want to hit on first is the foundation. Our foundation has to be built on faith, right? Faith in God. Your faith is only as strong as the vehicle in which you put it in. So do you have faith in your own abilities? Do you have faith in your money? Or do you have faith in God? Because when you put your faith in God, God never fails. God will never let you down. He will never forsake you. He will always bring you to the expected end he has planned for you. But my question is, where's your faith? When you are hit in the mouth, are you able to keep going? Yeah, because you hear a voice that says, Marcus, I've called you to go this way. Yep. You hear a voice that says, get up. You can make it. You hear a voice that says, there is a brighter tomorrow. You hear a voice that says, don't despise the day of small beginnings, right? Because everything that God does, it starts in seed form. I hear you, Lord. Everything that God does starts in seed form. When you first were born and you got here, it was a seed form, right? When you came into business, you had a seed or idea that says, you know what, I can do this. I can do this to provide for my family. I can do this to make money. I can do this to push things ahead. Whatever that seed form was, and then it's grown, right? It's grown into what it is currently. When God put you in your mother's womb, you started out as a seed, but now you're growing into the fullness of who God called you to be. In order to continue to grow, though, you got to keep faith. I love what Terry said the other day. He said that on the call, he said that when there's dysfunction, right? If you remove the dysfunction, growth is automatic. So if you remove dysfunction, growth is automatic. What dysfunction do you have in your life that needs to be removed? What habits do you have that are slowing you down and stopping you from growing in your business? What is it that's allowing you to get discouraged or get distracted when life hits you in the mouth, right? What is that? What is it? For each person is different. So a couple key things when it comes to perseverance and faith, right? Here's a point I want you to take away. Faith is the engine that powers perseverance. Say that one more time. Faith is the engine that powers perseverance. So if you want your car to keep going, you got to keep putting in faith. And here's what I want you to know. You say, what is faith, Marcus? Here's how faith comes. You ready? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. What are you hearing? Are you listening to positive self-talk? Are you listening to stuff that says that you're an overcomer? Are you listening to how bad it is, what's happening in the economy? You know, what's happening at your uncle, your auntie, and your cousin and them's house. Because if you listen to that, you're not going to have no faith, right? Faith and fear come the same way. You got to hear something. You got to hear it. Remember when Jesus was going to the daughter's house? They said, don't trouble the master because your daughter is dead. What did he say? Immediately he said, don't be afraid. So fear came based on what he was hearing. Faith comes based on what you're hearing. So are you guarding who you're listening to? Are you guarding what's going in? Because in this fight of building a business, in this fight of selling insurance, in this fight of trying to grow and be all that God called you to be, you got to guard what you're listening to. Because if you don't guard what goes in, eventually it's going to affect your heart and it will poison your heart. And your heart is the canvas that God paints his picture on. Your heart is what responds when God says, you can keep going, you can do this, get up, don't quit, don't throw in the towel. But if you don't guard your heart, if you don't protect it, then your faith gets squashed. And then eventually you get to a place where you're doubting, you have unbelief, and you don't think that you can lead. You don't think that you deserve to lead. You don't think that people want to listen to you. Who are they to listen to me? I'm not where I want to be, right? And I'm not where I should be. I get that. But remember, perseverance is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay. So even though it's difficult, even though you're delayed in achieving the success, you still got to persevere. But without faith, you will not persevere. So faith is important. How do you get faith? So my other point and takeaway for faith, you get it by what you listen to, what you hear. And ultimately for me, whenever you're talking to me, I'm going to try to steer you toward the word of God. Are you listening to what God has said concerning you? Are you listening to what the creator has said when he says, I have plans for you? I know the thoughts I think towards you. They are thoughts of good and not evil to bring you to an expected end. So if that is true, and I believe it's true, when I'm going through what I'm going through, it's just part of my expected end. When life hits me in the face, when the kids start acting crazy, when the money's a little low, it's just bringing me to my expected end. Because here's what I know. All things, not some things, all things work together. So when it's sickness in my body or sickness in my home, all things work together. When it's lack and the business isn't doing what I wanted to do, all things work together, right? For the good of them that love God and are called according to his purpose. Now, here's the key thing in leadership. If it's not going the way you want it to go, don't look or blame anybody else. Look at that man in the mirror, right? Michael Jackson had it so on point. It's the man in the mirror. If I'm expecting change, I got to look at Marcus and say, okay, Marcus, what are you doing or what needs to be done in order to get this to move forward in your business and to change? So remember, we walk by faith and not by sight. So I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what your bank account looks like. I don't care what your business looks like. We're walking by faith. And I'm, to be honest with you, I'm not where I want to be. If I'm just keeping it 100, keeping it a buck, but I walk by faith. So even though I'm not where I'd like to be, I'm not where I used to be either. Does that make sense? And that's what helps me in the gap and the gain. I tell God, thank you that I'm not the Marcus I used to be, even though I'm not where I would like to be. And so as we're growing and as you're growing your business, you got to hunker down in faith, because faith is what fuels the engine. Faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. What are you listening to? Are you listening to things that ignite your faith? Have you made your car a rolling university like it tells us to in the 8 steps of success? Are you listening to positive audios and positive self-talk? Or are you listening to all the garbage on social media? Are you listening to all the garbage on the news, right? Are you listening to the stuff that's going to fight against your faith? Because I'm telling you, you can't operate in two worlds. You can't operate in fear and faith. But the good news is God has given you the ability to choose. You can choose faith. Faith says, even though I don't see it, I'm still believing for the miraculous. Faith says that even though I don't know what it's looking like, I'm still going to press toward the mark of the prize of the high calling in Christ Jesus. Even though they quit on me, even though it charges back, even though it falls off, right? I'm still going to keep persevering because I have faith that this works. We have way too many examples, too many success stories that I've been here for the last 13 years, plus the last 25 years of the Alliance's inception of success stories. There's way too many success stories that show that it works if we work. This will work if you work, but you got to focus on what God has put before you and make sure you stay consistent in your faith, right? Now, real quick takeaways on faith before we get to the next part. My faith reminds me of this, that I'm building it with God. I'm going to say that one more time. Faith is that you're building a business with God. You're helping clients with God. You're serving agents with God. That's what faith is, that you're doing it with God. And this is, for me, this is one of the greatest promises I love in Scripture, when he says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. To me, that's beautiful. That word leaves means his presence won't depart. That word forsake in the original writing, it means that he will not be inactive in your life. So that's reassuring for me that God is with me. And because God is with me, he's never going to be inactive in my life. He's always going to be active in your life. The key is, are you willing to let him be active in your life? Are you willing to take him out the box? Are you willing to allow him to be big in you? Because that's his design and that's his desire all along, is to help you build something that glorifies him. So let men see your good works that they may glorify your Father in heaven. That's why we keep building it. That's why we keep building a business, so that when they look at our life, they know that it's God doing it. When you look at my life and where God has brought me from, you can't say this is Marcus doing this. No, I couldn't do this if I tried. This is nothing but God, right? And so I want to encourage you to remember that when it comes to faith. Key point takeaway number 2 on faith is speak faith when the results are slow. That's critical, right? So when you're not seeing what you want to see, continue to speak. It says in the Bible, we believed and therefore we have spoken, right? So what are you speaking? Are you speaking life to your business? Are you speaking leadership? Are you speaking that people are coming and getting in your business and it's growing every day? Are you speaking over your sales? Are you speaking to it? And you say, well, Marcus, that sounds weird. That sounds like that hocus pocus. No, here's what it sounds like. It sounds like I'm encouraging you because you were made in the image of God. And every time that God wanted to do something, he spoke it into existence. And because you're made in his image, you too can speak, and then God will begin to bring it to pass. That's what I'm believing. And that's what I know, is that death and life are in the power of your tongue. And so if you love it, you're going to eat its fruit. What that means is whatever you're saying becomes your reality. What are you saying? What are you saying over your business? What are you saying over your situation? What are you saying when you go into your estate planning? What are you saying when you go into the client's house? What are you saying when you pick up the phone and make the phone call, right? Are you saying that I'm a winner? I'm an overcomer. People like me and they want to buy insurance from me. People love me and they want to keep their money safe. What are you saying, right? People are joining my business every day. I'm getting new leaders every day, right? And this is even encouraging for myself. We got to continue to speak life. Therefore, what things soever you desire when you pray, believe that you have received them and you shall have them. So you got to believe that you have this. It's already spoken in the past tense. So believing, now we walk it out. And point number 3 on this faith is trust that my work is part of a greater calling. Yep. When I'm doing this, it's part of a greater calling. This is what God has called us to. Okay. You got to understand that and know that on the first F when it comes to faith. I spent a lot of time here because faith is the foundation of everything, right? The reason I'm here right now, even on this call and doing what I'm doing, is because I heard a voice say, come follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. I did not know what that looked like. And he led me to insurance. And now we're fishing, right? We're looking for people that are interested in building something, building a business, helping people, changing lives, right? I had to hear that. And then I had to trust that and obey that God was with me. But I know that there's a greater calling on your life, just like there's a greater calling on my life. But the question I have for you is, will you answer the call in faith? And will you build your business in faith when life hits you and they tell you can't do it and the cards are stacked against you and it looks like all hell is breaking out in your home, all hell is breaking out in your business, and you feel like you want to quit and throw in the towel? I am here today on May 9th to encourage you. Do not throw in the towel. Do not quit, because remember, quitters never win and winners never quit, and you're a winner. You got to keep getting up. You got to keep fighting, because no matter what happens, God is with you, and he's called you to do something great in the earth, and he's giving you this vehicle with insurance to be able to do that. So stay encouraged. Point number 1, faith. Okay. All right. Point number 2, family. So when you get to family, let's talk about this. Family's the why, like the legacy. So I think family's so important because the part that I think a lot of people miss is the first institution that God set up when he created Adam and Eve was family. Yep. He gave them each other, right? And then he is so concerned about family that whole book that I read is written around family. God and how he deals with his family, his children, and his kingdom. Okay. And so when you're reading it and you're looking at it, family is legacy. Family is important. And here's another, just drop in your spirit. Here's what it says in Proverbs 13:22. It says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Okay. A good man or a good woman in this example, right, leaves an inheritance. Are you working to leave an inheritance to your children? And let's go a little deeper. Not just an inheritance of money, right? Because if you leave them tons of money, but you don't teach them how to steward it and manage it, you've done them a disservice. Are you leaving your wife, your children, your spouse with a legacy of wisdom, of knowledge, of understanding? And are you leaving them a legacy that says, hey, look, here's what you can do with God? Like for me, here's one of my prayers and one of my desires is I want Adriel, I want Maya, my kids to look and say, hey, I see dad getting after it, and this is what it looks like to get after it. I don't want to be sitting on the couch watching Netflix, right? I don't want to be sitting on the couch watching movies. Now, there's a time and place for that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not sitting around when it's sun up and it's time to go get that money and it's time to go help those people and it's time to help people in our business, sitting around doing nothing, right? You tell the kids all the time, baby, you can be whatever you want to be. But my question for you is, do they see you getting after it? Do they see you being everything that you want to be, right? Do they say you tell them they can be a doctor, lawyer? Do they see you chasing a dream? Do they see you going all in for your dream? Because here's what happens. Our kids, our agents, our life, they're going to do what they see you do, not what they hear you say. Another example would be like when people say don't smoke, but they go out and smoke. Eventually, your kids are going to smoke because that's what they see you doing. Do they see you helping people? Do they see you serving people? Do they see you sacrificing? Right. And here's the beautiful thing with husband, wife, and spouses. When your spouse is out serving, continue to encourage, continue to tell your kids that, hey, daddy's out here killing it for us so that we can have a better quality of life. Or, hey, mommy's out here killing it for us so we can have a better quality of life. Continue to speak that because your kids will see that and you begin to set the example. All right. So let's get into it. Why? So I'll never forget this. I remember my son is 17 now, right? But I remember coming home. And as I was coming home, I looked in that back seat and this little beautiful baby boy's in the back seat. And a thought just clicked and hit me, man, if I don't get this done, he doesn't eat, right? And for me, it gave me a sense of responsibility. So my family gives me a sense of responsibility. So when life hits me, I look and I think about Adriel. When life hits me, I look and I think about Maya, right? When life hits me, I look and I think about Carla. I think about those who I want to impact that are in my circle and even those who are outside of my circle. And that's what drives me because Adriel needs to know what it's like to be a man of character. Adriel needs to know what it's like to be a man of conviction. Adriel needs to know what it's like to be a man of integrity, right? And he gets that through me. Maya needs to know what it's like to be a woman of integrity, to be a woman of character, to be a woman of conviction. She gets that through her mother. But they need to be able to look at us and say, you know what? This is what conviction looks like. This is what faith looks like. This is what it looks like to serve others and to go all in. So when my family looks at me, I want Maya to look at me. And here's one of the greatest compliments. If Maya says, I want to marry a man like my dad, that's a great compliment. That means that she sees what dad is doing for her mama, right? Can the kids say that about you, or do you want them to say that about you? But here's what happens. If life hits you, or you go somewhere else, or you tuck your tail and run, that's what the kids see. And so then ultimately, guess what? That's what the kids do. Because how many of you guys know this? Life is going to hit the kids just like it hits you. Yeah. And then when adversity hits you, the kids are going to say, well, how did dad handle that? How did mom handle that? When adversity hits you, right, they're going to look and say, hey, when adversity hit, my dad went and spent time with God. He prayed. He sought God. He sought counsel. He got wisdom. He got coaching. He goes and he grows and he does the things that's necessary. That's what I want my kids to see, because when they see it, instinctively, it's going to be in their DNA. So when life hits my kids, like it is going to hit them, I want them to know that they can go to their source. They can go to God in prayer. They can go to different mentors and they can get coaching and developing, because that's what they've seen their dad do, right? So when we're building it, your family, the legacy piece is what God has given us to be able to build it. And then I love my alliance family, my chosen family, because, you know, the people that are in your family, you don't get to choose them. Good, bad, or indifferent. You don't get to choose, you know, your brother that might get on your nerves, your auntie, your uncles, your cousins, and them, right? Your sister, right? You don't get to choose them. But here at the Alliance, you can choose your family. And because you get to choose your family, you can go all in for our alliance family, and you know that you're building it with family. So I think it's important when you're looking at this is understanding that your family is our chosen family. All of us are looking at each other and saying, okay, Marcus, what you gonna do? Right? Okay, we can talk about it, but now it's time to be about it, right? So that's one of the things that I think is when it gets hard, knowing that family is counting on me, knowing that my brothers and comrades in the alliance are counting on me, knowing that Adriel, Maya, Carla are counting on me, my brothers, my dad, my people are counting on me to stay committed and to stay consistent and steady with what God has given us and put in front of us. So, key point, family is the mission, right? And my work is to build a legacy that lasts beyond me. Are you building a legacy that lasts beyond you? What does that look like? And this is, I think, for me, the best example is Christ. He was here. He did his work for 3 years. He developed a family, right? He gave his life for his family. And then after giving his life for his family, we still see his legacy some 2,000 years later. Will your legacy last 2,000 years? We don't know. We like to think so. We don't know. But what am I doing now to help build that legacy? And here's the other thing. It's as powerful as one life at a time, right? That's what I want them to say about me. Because I met him, my life is better. Are you building that legacy for your family, right? What are you doing to build that legacy, right? Next point. Every effort today builds a future for people I love. Every effort, from making the phone calls, getting the rejections, getting told no, business growing, business compressing, business growing, business compressing. Every effort is to help build for the future for those that I love. Does that make sense? So because I love my family, I'm not going to quit. Because I love my family, I'm not going to throw in the towel. Because I love my family, I'm going to keep on keeping on when life gets hard. Because again, you heard me say this earlier, it's not if it gets hard, but it's when it gets hard. So make up in your mind, when it gets hard, I'm not going to stop. Because it's going to get hard. You're not going to have every day be peaches and rainbows, sunshines, right? It's not going to be like that all the time. But here's what I know. In those days that it's not like that, it's all good because God is still with me. Point number 2 on this. My children's children, here's what what you got to think. My children's children will benefit from the seeds I plant now. Yep, good and bad. My children's children will benefit from the seeds I plant now. Now, without getting too deep, but I want you to understand that the decisions you make are not just private decisions. The things you think you're doing in secret that no one sees, they're not just private decisions. The things you do in public, they're not just for you. The things I do now, the decisions I make now are impacting Adriel and Maya and their kids, right? That's what I want people to understand, because when you go all in, you have to understand that these decisions that I'm making to go all in, this is impacting generations coming after me, not just for Marcus, but for those who are coming after me. So as you go in, know that my children will benefit from the seeds I plant today. Your children, right? Your agents, the people who are going to come after you, they're going to benefit from the seeds you plant for today, the systems you put in place, the way that you recruit, the way that you build. They're going to benefit from those things that you put in place. What are you putting in place? And then point number 3 on this one is family is not my reason to quit. They're my reason to keep going. Well, I just want to spend time with the kids and, I don't get no free time with my wife or my husband. What? Stop it. Family is not the reason to quit. Family is the reason to keep going. That's why you keep pouring on the gas. That's why you keep your foot on the gas. That's why you don't ever get off the gas, because they're watching you. They're looking and saying, okay, what are you going to do? That's the key. And then when it comes to family, we got to lead by example, right? They're looking at us and saying, okay, what example are you setting, Dad? What are you doing for the family? And then another note I wrote down here, it says, time is not refundable. So use it with intention. None of us know when our last day is. You're not going to get it back. You don't know when you're going to take your last breath. So make every day a day that you live maxed out, because you don't know what that looks like. You don't know when your last day is, and it's not refundable. So are you living life with intention? Can we look at your life and say, yep, this looks intentional? And if I can be honest with you, there's some days that I'm like, Marcus, what are you doing? What are you doing, Marcus? Get up and get after it. And then there's some days where I look and I say, man, you got after it today. I'm proud of you, right? But here's the key. Here's the key. When you have those days, don't let them spiral into weeks. Like if you have a moment that's not like a really good moment, and you're like, man, I didn't really go all out, or man, I probably could have handled that different. Don't let that moment spiral into a day. And then don't let that day spiral into 4 days. And don't let that 4 days spiral into a week. And don't let that week spiral into a month. Because the next thing you know, you look up and you're like, man, I done lost all my momentum. How did I get here? Like, what happened? And so when you have a moment in the day where you're not fired up about what you did or how you did things, give yourself some grace, right? But keep moving forward. Give yourself some grace and keep moving forward. And I love what Adam Katz said when I was first getting started several years ago. I was taking him to the airport, and we were talking. And this is why I love meetings and coming to the meeting, especially the local meetings, and that meeting coming up in May in Maryland, and that meeting coming up in California. You guys want to register for that? Make sure you get out there with Andy and the intense training. But the reason I love those meetings is because you get to hear the leader's heart. And when I was taking Adam to the airport, I was telling him how frustrated I was and some different things that were happening. And here's what he told me. He said, the good news is you're an entrepreneur, Marcus. You're a business owner. So if you don't like the Marcus that showed up yesterday, just fire him and then have the new Marcus show up tomorrow. I never thought of that until we had that conversation. I was like, man, that was a profound thought for me. So if you don't like the results you got yesterday, if you don't like the decisions you made yesterday, you're the business owner. You're the entrepreneur. You're the one building this. Just fire that guy or fire that girl, and then show up new for work tomorrow with your mind right, and begin to coach yourself. Like, what would I say to Marcus yesterday based on what I know now? And then start doing that, right? It's kind of taking a subjective look at your life and saying, okay, I know I didn't handle that right in my marriage. I probably didn't make that best decision with the kids. I probably could have been a little more patient, a little more kind, a little more loving. And then do that tomorrow. Give yourself some grace, but then do that tomorrow. Or I probably should have hit my schedule like I said I was going to. I probably should have did those interviews, right? Or I should have scheduled to have the interviews, or I should have hired that other staff person to make sure I had interviews and kept my calendar full. You notice what you should have done, right? It's okay. Just do it tomorrow. Does that make sense? Plan for it and then work that plan and do it tomorrow, and stay consistent and understand that the seeds you plant today are for a future harvest. What seeds are you planting today in your work, in your thoughts, in your behavior, in your attitude, in your actions to get you that future harvest, right? Because harvest only comes from what's been planted. What are you planting in your business? What are you planting in your spouse? What are you planting in your kids? That's the harvest you're going to get. If you don't like the way your kids are behaving, look at what you planted 5 years ago. If you don't like the way your business is performing, look at what you planted yesterday. Look at what you planted 90 days ago. Look at what you planted a year ago. Look at what you planted 6 months ago, right? And I'm speaking to myself because I'm looking at some of the results and I'm like, man, what was I doing 90 days ago? Because usually our business is in cycles. That's why we have the events every 90 days. You can typically look back 90 days and say, got it. I probably should have been building and probably should have been working on depth, probably should have been, right? And then that determines the results that you get. So 90 days. So now here's the good news. If you want a different harvest, start planting those seeds now, right? Start doing the things now and building your business, putting the processes in place to get that harvest in the future. That's what I'm working on. So we came back from the event. We hired another staff person. Okay. And just because I hired another staff person doesn't mean that it's going to be peaches and cream and I'm going to get, 15, 20 different people signed up and going. I wish that was the case, but it doesn't always work like that. So I just keep going, keep staying consistent, keep staying steady, increase the activity because my family is counting on me. My family is watching me. So I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to throw in the towel because I want Adriel in mind, because I say that all things are possible with God. There's nothing that I can't do. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, I tell my kids that, but they're watching me. So, Dad, if you say you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, why are you not reaching your goals? Why are you not hitting it? Because I want my son, I want my daughter to say, the same God that my dad serves is my God. right? I want them to be like what Jacob said. The God of Abraham and Isaac is my God. I want Adriel and Maya to say that. I want them to be proud to say that the same God who took my daddy off of food stamps and state assistance is the same God who provides for me. The same God that taught my daddy how to build a business and help and serve other people is the same God that works for me. This is what I want my kids to see. This is what I want them to know, is that the God who did it for daddy is the same God who did it for you. And then ultimately, I want them to have their own relationship with the God that I serve, and not just based on dad's faith. But if they don't see me serving him, if they don't see me serving people, then they won't do it. So my family is my why, because I want to set the example for them. Does that make sense? All right. Point number 3. You ready? Freedom. Freedom. Your vision and your responsibility will produce freedom. And here's a scripture for you, okay? It says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Galatians 5:1. Stand firm then, and don't submit again to yoke of slavery and bondage. Let me just say it like this. Freedom is also a state of mind. You can say you're free, but still be bound in your thinking. Let me make it a little simpler. Let me kind of paint a picture. Is that freedom comes from sacrifice, but you're not free just because someone sacrificed. They sacrificed for the door to be open. Our men of war, thank you to those who served, that are working with the Alliance and watching this. I appreciate you. My hat's off to you. They died blood, sweat, and tears. So it cost them something for us to be free here in America, right? But even though it cost them something, I have to maximize the freedom that they purchased. You have to maximize the freedom that was purchased for us on Calvary. You're free, but if you don't think differently, you'll never walk into your freedom. Another story on the Emancipation Proclamation, right, is that Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, but the slaves didn't go free. Why? Because they were still locked up in their mind because of the environment that they were used to. Are you locked up in your mind? Let me just make it more plainly. I have been locked up in my mind. This is why we got to continue to read. This is why we got to continue to get around people that have a higher self-image than us, because what it does is it opens up your mind to know, wait, you can be free. You can be free. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter where you're from or your background. It doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is what you think about yourself. And that's man's biggest challenge, is self-ignorance, is that we don't know ourselves. We don't know really who we are. And so if you don't know who you are, you'll never walk into the freedom that God purchased for you. If you don't know who you are, you're always going to be bound by your past, right? Reminds me of a Tupac song. I'm going here, y'all. Bear with me. But he said, I'm staring at the world through my rear view, praying to God, hoping he can hear you. A lot of times I've been guilty of that, is where I'm looking at the past, but I miss the big future that God has in front of me. What about you? Are you so bound up in your past that you can't really walk in the freedom that was purchased for you? Because we have everything we need right now to be free, financially, mentally, spiritually, physically. Everything we have is right here at our fingertips. But it takes me back to point number 1. In order for you to walk in freedom, you got to have faith. Faith that your freedom was already purchased. Faith that the men and women who bled and died for us and died for our country purchased our freedom. And because we're free, we can exercise that freedom of speech. Because we're free, we can exercise that freedom of religion. Because you're free, you can build it how big and how fast as you want to, because you're free. But if you don't get free in your mind, you're never going to walk in that freedom. So here's how you get free in your mind. Here's some how-tos. What are you reading? What are you listening to? Who are you spending time with? Because you are the sum total of the people that you spend time with. You are the sum total of what you've been listening to. You are the sum total of the decisions you've been making up to this point. But our minds have to be unlocked. So when Christ came, this was his number 1 message, was this: repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What does that have to do with freedom, Marcus? I'm glad you asked. That word repentance, it means to change the way you think. That's what the challenge is. Change the way you think. You can build a business. You can be a leader. You can lead people to freedom. You can help other people get free, but you have to see it for yourself before you can seize it for yourself. If you don't see that you're a leader, if you don't see that you can do great things, if you don't see that God is with you, you'll never walk in the freedom that was purchased for you. But freedom costs something. I'm going to say that one more time. Freedom costs something. If you're going to walk in the fullness of the freedom that was purchased for you, it's going to cost you something. And here's what it costs. Freedom costs you your life. You got to be willing to go all in to give up your life in order to be free, because the enemy of our soul does not want you free. He does not want you to walk in freedom in your mind. He wants you to still be depressed, still thinking about your past. He wants you to still be anxious about your future, wondering where the money is going to come from. Do you have enough to make this investment? Do you have enough? Do you have what it takes to really help people, to serve people, to build? That's what the enemy of your soul wants. He wants to keep you in bondage so tough that when life hits you, you just quit, throw in the towel and say, I don't want to do this anymore. But I'm here today on May 9th to encourage you. I feel like that's what this call is for you today, is to encourage you that you can be free. You can build it for your family, and you can walk in faith with God and know that there's nothing too hard for God. But the key is, are you willing to give your life to this? Marcus, I thought I was just building an insurance business. Bro, sister, it's more than just building an insurance business. At the end of the day, they're going to look and say, what did you do with what I gave you? What did you do with your life? Did you go all in? And here's what my book says. It says, if a man don't work, he don't eat. Yeah, this is where we've decided to work. So now it's time to eat and eat good. It's time to get after it. But are you willing to be free? Right? Are you willing to do what it takes and make the sacrifices that it takes in order to be free? Practice delayed gratification. Do the things that's necessary in order for you to be free. All right. So some takeaways on freedom. Okay. So I kind of got on that. I'm sorry. Y'all know how I get sometimes. All right. So here we go. Key point for freedom is the fruit of faithful work and responsibility that comes with vision. Freedom is the fruit of faithful work and the responsibility that comes from vision. If you're not working faithfully, you won't be free. If you don't have a vision of what the future looks like, you won't walk in freedom. What does the vision of what your future looks like? What does it look like for you? What is the picture that God is showing you that you want to paint? What does that look like? Okay. Freedom means, here's what freedom means to me. Okay. It means more time, more generosity, more purpose, more money. What does that look like? Right? Because you can have all the money in the world and still not be free because you're so time bound. Or you can be like when I first started, have all the time in the world, but have no money. So you can't do nothing, no way. Right? My dad always says this. He says, son, you don't help the poor by becoming one of them. If you want to help somebody who's less fortunate, you need to be able to help them from a place of your fortune. He told Abraham, I have blessed you, Abraham, so that you can be a blessing. The reason he's given us this alliance opportunity is so that we can be a blessing to other people. We can give more, we can do more, we can hurt and serve, not hurt, but we can help and serve more families, right? And so this is why he's given this to us. And let me say this real quick shout out. I'm just thinking about this. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms this Sunday coming up. We love you. We appreciate you, but happy Mother's Day. Freedom. I'm fighting for freedom, not just for me, but for others. So your freedom is not just for you, but it's for others. The civil rights movement. It wasn't just for Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and the people that followed him. It was for others, right? Jesus, when he gave his life, it wasn't just for Jesus, right? It was for others to be free. He said, I have this, whom the Son has set free is free indeed. He didn't come just so he could have freedom, but he came to free others. This takes me to my point earlier with significance. Are you doing things that are going to help others be free? My perseverance paves the way for impact and influence. My perseverance paves the way for impact and influence. Remember, you got people watching you. What you going to do? Have you decided that I'm not going to quit? Have you decided that I'm going to go all in? Have you decided that even though it's hard, I'm going to keep on building it? Even though it's delayed, I'm going to keep on building it. Even though it's difficult, I'm going to keep on building it. I made that decision. I know I want it bigger. I want it 10 times, 100 times bigger. But until we get to that point, I'm going to keep on working, because I believe that God has given us work to show who he is so he can work in us and through us. So we're going to keep on growing, keep on building it, and keep on getting after it. So as we're getting ready to close here, faith, family, freedom. Okay. Faith, family, freedom is important. Your faith, what are you hearing? What are you listening to? And what are you speaking? And what are you saying? Your family is watching you. What legacy do you want to build? What legacy do you want to leave for them? As they're looking at you, do you want them to say, hey, I want to be like my dad, or hey, I want to be like my mom? Or are they going to say, I don't want to be anything like my dad, right? He wasn't getting after it. I don't want to be anything like my mom. She wasn't getting after it. She was telling me one thing and doing another. Or do you want to hear them say, I want to be just like my dad and just like my mom, right? We're planting seeds today that will benefit those others. And then freedom. What are you willing to give up? Because it's going to cost you something to be free. Freedom is not free. It has to be purchased with sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice putting the stuff down that's not good for you? Are you willing to sacrifice putting things down that are stopping you from reaching your goals? Are you willing to sacrifice giving up and saying, you know what, I'm going all in for the dream, for the vision that God has put in my heart? And then lastly, as we close out with this is why I keep going. Okay. So we got faith, we got family, we got freedom. But why we keep going? In conclusion, we keep going right. Here's the declaration. I want you to kind of start saying this. Okay. I'm building something eternal. I'm called. I'm committed. I keep going because it matters. Think of that. I'm building something eternal. My work for God is eternal. The seeds that I sow in people's lives are eternal. Are you building it with God? I'm building something that's eternal. I'm called. You're called with a great call. God is saying, will you come? Will you follow me? Will you trust me? And then you got to keep going because it matters. What you're doing today matters. What you do tomorrow matters. And I got news for you. You matter. That's why you can't quit, because you do matter. God is with you. And here's one of my favorite passages. It says, everything I do it as unto the Lord. So when I jump on this call, I'm doing it as unto the Lord. When I'm going to that client's house, when I'm calling that client, when I'm doing the plan, when I'm helping and building and teaching and whatever, when I'm loving my wife, when I'm serving my kids, I'm doing it as unto the Lord. So as you build your business in faith for your family to give freedom for others who are coming after you, know that you're doing it with God. And final encouragement, when fatigue comes, remember this: faith fuels me, my family drives me, and freedom empowers me. Read that one more time. When fatigue comes, remember this: faith fuels me. Faith is the fuel that keeps the engine going. Your family drives you. When you want to quit, they're looking, they're watching. There's no quit in me, right? And then freedom empowers. That word empower, it means to give the ability to do. Mm-hmm. Freedom gives you the ability to do because you want to be free. I want to have time freedom. I want to have money freedom. And that freedom empowers me to go out and serve and help others. You're building it, something that's eternal. You're called and you're committed. And keep going because it matters and you matter. It's Marcus Richardson. Love you. Take care.